Alright guys, so we're going to be doing this door to this tank, and I'm going to show you how I convert my fish tanks vertically. I started a little bit of it. It did cut the glass one way, but I'm going to show you how I cut the rest of it. So I cut it this way already, so I got my up and down length, and then we're going to cut it this way now, because it should fit here to my upper length. That's how wide I want it. And now we just need to mark it here and we'll cut it. So I'll begin doing that. And we're just going to put a little mark right here. If you're wondering where to get glass, I got this from a job. We took out those old storm windows, and most of the time it's not tempered, so you can get away with using it. What I like to do is I like to keep it away a little bit from the edge, so you have a little bit of a space, so when the door swings up it doesn't hit any of the plastic. And so let's mark this on each end. We're just going to take that black line right off, and then we'll clean the glass. But I like to make the door, because I have so much room here up and down, I like to make the door bigger than the hinge. This is a 1 foot hinge, 1 foot acrylic hinge, and I'll have a little gap at the bottom here and a little gap at the top. So I'll just cut this plastic out. I split the difference, found my center, split the difference and made up for it on each end. And then I'll just center my acrylic hinge, and then I'll cut this plastic out with a saw, which I'll show you how to do in just a second. Let's get this glass cut first. So I'm going to bring you guys right over here to the floor. You can get these at Lowe's or Home Depot. It's a glass knife meant for cracking glass and cutting it. And they're fairly cheap. I think they're like $2 or something like that. And the glass you can also get at Lowe's. I know they carry glass and acrylic and they'll cut it right there for you, so I've done that also. I gave them my measurements and had them cut it for me before, but I have this glass already laying around. I might as well use it. So let's start cutting this. I'm just taking this framing square. It's an old one, I know, but we'll line it up along the edge. This glass seems to be a little out of square, but that's alright. So we'll line it up and we'll pull it back. Make sure my blade's right where I want it. It has a little wheel blade on it, so we'll make sure that's where it is. Right where I want to cut it. I just go a little shorter so I have a little bit of play in the glass. It's alright because it's going to be catching a pretty fairly big lip. So I give it a little bit of space right here. I don't know how well you guys can see this going on. But then I'm just going to run this blade right down it. You'll hear it cracking. You want to make sure you get a solid cut on each, right off to the edge. So make sure you roll that wheel right off to the edge. Then you'll take this little ball, simply gonna place it underneath, right underneath your cut. Apply a little pressure and it should pop. So there's your glass cut. Fits beautifully. So now what will happen is it will open just like this. So that's going to work perfect. You'll be able to adjust your door when you go to put your hinge on. So I'll get this cleaned up and we'll be right back. Alright, so I'm going to show you how I cut the plastic. think this will be the best angle. So I got my 2 marks. I don't know how well you can see them. I got one right here, and then I got one right here. So like I said, I measured how big I wanted the glass. That's my mark here. And then I centered my hinge between here and there. And that'll leave me with a little lip on each end. So I'm going to begin cutting that. And I squared my line, so I'm just going to follow that. Sorry if you make it a little bigger, you don't want it to be perfect, because if you go too small, it's going to be a pain in the ass to take that little bit out to fit your hinge in. Once you hear it hit glass, you're going to want to start angling it. Just hold your line. You can get it glass. You want to stop. Stop this side real quick. Want to get started? I was on the outside of my line, so I don't have a little space. Alright, that's cut. Now we're going to cut on the back side of the tank. So I'm just going to take this, and you can square your line down if you want. You can take speed square, friend square, whatever you want. You can square it down. But I'm just going to line, and I'll angle it slightly out, so I know the hinge is going to fit. Make sure you guys can see this a little steady. Just start at the top. I like using the pencil. Things work best for me. You can get that glass, and just make sure you cut all around. Right there, you can get a glass noise. Sometimes you get things under if I can. Pull out and finish cut. So I'm going to push this side. Oh my god, can't we see this right now? This is not to see. Alright. This is going to be the hard part. I'll get color through on that yet. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try to pry this off. It should pop off. It's going to be a little tough, but it should break off. This one's going to break into 2. Yep. Alright. There's one piece. Now we need to try to get this off. So I'm going to take a flathead screwdriver. I'm going to see if I can wedge it up in here a little bit. There it goes. And it's off. And now all we have to do is clean up the glass. So you want to get all that silicone out of your way. There's going to be all silicone stuff to here. We're just going to get this cleaned up good. Number side. We're going to get it out. Probably take a little vinegar to it, a little bit of rubbing alcohol, clean up nicely. Alright guys, got our glass nice and clean. Now I should say, if you're gonna get it from Lowe's or anywhere, basically it's gonna be freshly cut, so if you don't want it sharp on the end, you're gonna want to take a high grit sandpaper and either hand sand it, or you can lightly take a sander to the edge and you can just smooth it over so it's not so sharp. I don't really worry about the edge I'm gonna be putting the hinge on, because you'll never touch that. This is basically for your own safety, and this way you're not gonna cut yourself every time you open the door. But I do have some tanks I never sanded down, and I never have any issue with it. But another thing is, if you're going to want a thicker glass, you're probably going to have to go to a place where they do cut glass, like a mirror glass place, or any place that has, they do like custom picture frames or something. So, yeah. With Lowe's, you're gonna only get like an eighth of an inch thick piece of glass. So if you want anything thicker, you are going to have to go to a specialty place where they make mirrors and cut glass. But I've been using the 1/8 inch. It's cheap. These acrylic hinges are really cheap. And they're easy to replace if they do break. I've had a few break on me, and it was fairly easy to replace. So with that being said, we can move on, and we will be putting our hinge on. Now with the 1/8 inch piece of glass, it's gonna be sitting too low for me to put my hinge on. It's gonna butt up against this, so I need to get rid of this lip here. And how I do that is I use a little bit of clay. So, and then eventually I do put they have this foam stripping. Somebody told me the name of it, but to be honest, I cannot remember. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put these little balls of clay right in each corner, and I'm going to do all 4 corners. This seems to work just fine, but I do put that weather stripping. It's a weather stripping for like sliding doors, and I do eventually put that around the glass edges if I have a little bit of gapping or anything, just to prevent like the fruit flies from coming out. So we're just going to take our glass, line it up where we want it, and then we'll simply just sink it into this clay down to where we want it. So make sure your gap is a little bigger here at first, because your door is going to want to drop a little bit with the hinge, and it will hit this bottom glass. So I like to keep a little bit of a space at the bottom, and then I straighten it out from there to where I'll like it. And then we will simply just push this end down till we feel it's flush. And that seems pretty good. Seems pretty good. Now you can feel it. Should feel pretty flush right there. And now for the next step, all we have to do is mix our 2-pot epoxy, which is right here. It's clear, 2-pot epoxy. And we will mix the two, and we should be ready to go. You want a somewhat of an even mount under the glass. Alright, our other stuff don't want to come out. This stuff you do want to mix fairly quickly and use quick. So make sure you're ready once you start mixing this, because it dries quick. Alright. Now we'll apply it onto the hinge. Just wipe down your hinge, make sure it's clean. And we'll just take a scoop, apply it right down this edge part of your acrylic hinge. do want to work fairly quick with this. It does dry quick. If you want, you can test it out on something. I like to get a good amount on there. And I was saying before, it's easy to replace, but it is a little bit of a pain in the ass to remove this from the tank after. But it is possible. You will not probably be able to save the hinge, but you can remove it from the glass. And I have my door off. This looks pretty good, so right now it's already probably 30. Almost not usable. So right here, never know. Alright. So then we will put our hinge right on here. Try to eye it the best you can and slowly drop it in place. And then you just want to apply a little bit of pressure to push the air out. But you don't want to push down, you want to try to get your arm in there and apply the pressure, because if you push down, you're going to push your clay down. So by doing this, I'm slowly working out the air bubbles and get the hinge right where I want it. Don't worry if it oozes out the side, you can cut that away later. Just go along, try to push out all your air bubbles. And that should be it. I got a little air bubble right here, but this could be because the acrylic hinge is a little out of whack, so it could be causing a little bit of a bubble right here. Either way, it comes out nice and clear and it should hold pretty well. So I think we should be good. So there's our door. Do you want to push this a little tighter, because when you get your sag out of it, because these hinges will drop a little bit, you will get a little bit of a sag. So make sure you're all set for that. It's not much, but it's a little bit to make that much of a difference to where you'll hit your glass down here at the bottom. I don't know how much footage I got in that, but I pushed out the air bubbles and I slowly went down and I just worked them out. Like, I got one right here, but it could be because the hinge is a little bowed up probably right there. So as it dries, I'll come back and try to work that out. As you can see, it's starting to stay away as it's drying. I'm probably having that same problem right over here. But like I said, make sure you go from underneath and on top, especially if you're using clay, because you don't want to push down and then you'll mess up your clay and where you're at with the height. Alright guys, so there's the whole glass. This is our next pot. So we got these little corner pieces, and we have this bracket. If I can show you. Now this is how you replace a screen for a window. Same method, but we will be making a little mini screen for the top up here. So all it basically is these little corner pieces, they pop right in here, and that'll be it. And that's how we'll get our measurements for the end. And like I said, I already have that metal saw, and that's what I'll be using to cut it. I'm sure there's some easier ways of cutting it. You can use a chop saw or whatever you want. But this is such a small project, I'm not going to bust out a chop saw. I'm just going to use this.